All right. Well, it's time to get started. So thank you everyone for coming to another Reltio community show. Today's show is Navigating Success, Enhance and Expand with Reltio's Professional Guidance and Services team. So really excited to have these guys on, talk a little bit about some offerings that we have for you to take a look at. So we have quite a bit of a team today. So really excited. It'd be our first time to have like four of us. So, um, the rules of the show is keep yourself on mute as usual. All questions, please ask in chat, and or take yourself off mute. We are recording this and we will post it to the community and send it out for everyone to take a look at it later. So today's show we have, as you know, it's April 9th. And then the 16th, we do have a learning. It's Reltio configuration via API virtual instructor-led training. So there are a couple prerequisites before you can take that, but thought we'd put that out there just as an FYI. And the next four shows, so we've been busy and almost every single week from here on out until the 7th, we have even getting another one here coming up. But advancing patient health, the role of holistic patient data management and consent. So we'll have Deloitte really do a little bit of cool stuff around at a high level on patient mastering. And then on the 30th, we have one of our partners in doing a show around achieving real-time data quality with custom UI, and that's from Olpia Tech. So really excited to work with them. And then we have some new stuff from a product standpoint that we're going to talk a little bit about on discovering Reltio's AI and ML powered Fern for data unification. And that's going to be a high level kind of business outcomes, what you get from that. And then we'll go into a technical show that we're excited about. And I'm excited to get our AI ML like techie kind of guy. His name's Rob Sylvester on unlocking entity resolution with AI, how Fern is revolutionizing data matching. And if you're in life sciences, we do have an event, and I'll push this in the chat here shortly. It's an industry event on May 9th. It's going to be in New Jersey. So if you want to go to that, let me know, and I'll, again, give the registration link here shortly. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, give it to Stanley.
All right. You always have such a great slate of shows coming up, Crystal. It got me excited.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, good morning, good afternoon, folks, for wherever you're joining from. Appreciate you joining this. Really excited to share here. So you'll have three presenters here from the Reltio Professional Services group. We are presenting on two new service offerings. So these do come with a cost, but we, of course, want to really highlight who they may be a best fit for, what values they bring, what outcomes you can expect, and if they may assist. So if you're joining from the customer side, great. Really want to show you how these could benefit you, and depending on your time in the cycle of growth with Reltio. If you're partner, if you're internal, this is a great show to see what we're doing, what we're up to, what you may see, how we may collaborate with you on these. And when you see their names come across, you know what to expect. Intros first. So myself, Stanley Jarris, I'm one of our directors within Professional Services. I've been with the company about 2.5 years, been in the services consulting space about 15 or so, including SaaS consulting and the like. Rakesh, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure, Stanley. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rakesh, and I'm a solutions architect with the Reltio Professional Services team. Been with Reltio for more than 2 years now, and started working on Reltio since 2016. Have been working on multiple implementations, and our main motive is to help customers do the right thing right away. Over to you, Brian.
All right, my name is Brian Haley. I'm a director in professional services at Stanley, mainly out of the East, and I've been with Reltio a long time. I left for a couple of years, but came back last year. So good to see all of you again.
Wish I could do a good Godfather impression, Brian. Once you think you're out,
That's right.
Can't do it justice, though. All right. The first one we're going to hit, so Rakesh and I will take you through the Reltio 360 assessment. So this is similar to other assessments you may see in the software product space, other health checks, where we're going to look at how are you using Reltio? Is it close to best practice? Where can we recommend improvements? So great timings for this include, if you've had Reltio for a year or more, or you're about to expand, you're adding new domains, you're expanding your use of it. Are you getting the full use out of the product you've purchased, and is it optimal in that use? Okay. A few highlights on what it is and where we're going with it. On the far left there, you can see we really want to drive, like I mentioned, to that roadmap. So where are you going? How can we help? Where's this headed? And then are you set up well for that? Will you get the full value? And relative to those use cases you have and perhaps other use cases in your space, are there some that we can bring to you and make sure you're set up to fully realize that value for those new use cases you're looking towards, the new value you're looking to get? In that mindset, what are the roadblocks that we see? Is there a gap? Is there a difference from some best practices? What are some quick wins to get you there so you do get recommendations out of this offering, this Reltio 360 assessment offering? We'll give you that path that'll start with and we'll show you a bit of a snapshot of that deliverable, some quick wins, and then those more strategic ones. And then lastly, how do you specifically action these best practices? Not just the high level of, okay, there's some deviation here from match rules or something to that effect. Really, how do you address these in a specific and quantitative way? We will go through on the left there, architecture, governance, and configuration. So we'll be looking at any documents possible that you have, solution design documents, going through and looking for best practice adherence. We'll look at governance. What's the flow? Are you using data validation functions, the workflows, and then the configuration itself. So we do bring in a technical delivery manager on this, a solution architect like Rakesh, looking at design, and then a technical consultant as well, who are real experts, real seniors at the configuration, who do configurations at other customers and really live and breathe that. From a deliverable standpoint, and we'll show you these in a bit more detail in a moment on the right, we will give you a readout. So there's, at the end of this, it's about 4 to 5 weeks, usually about 5. We'll go through a detailed readout of how you scored in each grouping, what we recommend, and then a level of effort, an estimation of time if you wanted to correct each of those recommendations. For the areas we look at, there are about 10 here that you'll see. Now, let's say you did reach out to me, you're really excited, but you said, hey, Stanley, we need a faster version of this. We do have an abbreviated path where we could do about 5, but ideally, perfect state, we're going to look at 10 here. So that will include what you expect along data model, integrations, quality and cleansing, stewardship, the UI, survivorship matching, tenant management. And then we'll drill down. So this would be the first layer, and then we'll go about 2 to 3 layers deeper on each as we score them, and then give you the detailed readout by category and how you're performing against expected maturity on each. Let me pause there. Rakesh, do you see anything here? And I know I'll lean on you on the next one. Anything you want to highlight before I move to the deliverable slide?
Yeah, I mean, this slide pretty much sums up all the components that Reltio houses today. And that's the reason why we call this 360-degree assessment. So again, we're talking about 10 assessment areas here. But again, each of these areas will be drilled down further into multiple second level assessment areas. So roughly we will be evaluating about 200 components or 200 second level areas, and then we'll do a deep dive in a minute. I mean, we'll go to that scoring sheet and we'll talk about how we go about scoring each of these high level areas, and then how the drill downs look like.
Thank you, Rakesh. Okay, I'll hit these five, Rakesh, and then I'll kick it to you for the assessment score sheet overview. Sound good?
Sounds good. Absolutely.
Okay. So specifically, what is the outcome? What do you get from this? What are we going to review and discuss with you? And maybe how does that become actionable? Perhaps one thing we've seen with this, for folks that drive a customer MDM program on the customer side day to day, you may already know there are certain deficiencies or certain goals you have, but then this helps have that conversation internally. If you're trying to explain to executives what you're seeing or to have more detail behind that, this is something we found very helpful. What you have from an ammunition standpoint to assist in that discussion will be assessment scores on the upper left. So Rakesh is going to cover that in a moment. That's where, within those 10 review areas, we go into deep detail and score them. Then that produces this domain scoring where you're seeing, as we mature, how are we doing against those in that visual performative way? On the top right here, utilization scores by area, so quantitative statistics on usage. Bottom left, one of the keys, recommendations. And then we go left to right on quick wins to the big strategic. And I'll towards the end, I'll show you a zoomed in one of this. So you can see it a little bit better. But we're going through each recommendation and sizing them. So not just throwing some scores at you and saying, hey, good luck. No, it is how big is it? How significant is it? And how hard is it to implement that change? And then we also provide efforts and timelines for each. All right, Rakesh, if I drop shared, are you ready?
Yes, I can share my screen.
Perfect. So Rakesh is going to walk us through that scoring sheet on the 10 areas.
All right, let me know once you're able to see my screen.
You are live.
Awesome. All right, so this is a very comprehensive scoring sheet that we have, and this is the Reltio proprietary document. The sheet is very simple to use. Most of the things happen in the backend. It has two main things. One is the way we score each of the assessment areas and the priorities that clients will have to set. Not every area is of the top priority for the client. So client has an option to set their priorities, and we go with priority 1 to 5. 5 being the absolute critical priority, and 1 is not applicable, not required. And again, if we look at the scoring, we score from 1 to 5 again. 5 indicates that the configuration is is on par with the best practice. We have done everything that we could. 4 indicates that there could be some minor change for the better usability. 3 indicates that the component can be further tuned if there are any performance issues or scalability issues. And 2 indicates that there is some data or governance issue, and it definitely requires some sort of tuning. And 1 indicates that it needs immediate attention, like something is not working as expected. For example, the cleansing is working only on US, but it's not working on other countries, etc. like that. And again, if we look at the areas, we cover pretty much everything. We look at the overall integration, we look at the data model, we look at RDM, we look at matching, we look at survivorship. We'll also look at any customization if it's been done. And also look at the UI configurations and the tenant management activities, which we periodically run to ensure that they're running efficiently and they're doing what they're supposed to do. Now, these are the level 1 areas, like whatever you see on the left side are the level 1 evaluation areas. And we will further drill down to the level 2 areas. And in each of these areas, there are like 5 to 10 areas that we will assess. Again, our priorities are also set at each evaluation area, we do set it at level 1, we set it at level 2, and we also set it at level 3. Now, this is the level 2. This talks about the level 2 details, like it tells us what are the high level components that we will be assessing in the data model or RDM, or if we talk about integration, what is that we will be looking at. Again, I'll not do a deep dive on what areas we will cover, but if we just look at the data model and RDM, we will be covering the entity model, the overall conceptual model, and the way the entities are set up. We'll talk about the relationships, hierarchies. If we are using interactions, then we'll also assess how that model has been set up. We'll also look at how the RDM has been functioning, like if there are any unmapped values, if there are too many data sets, or if something is not being configured, which can be configured, and we'll also assess if the customers are missing out on any new features that have been released after the implementation has been performed. Like, we have 3 major releases every year, but we also have few minor releases. So customers might not pay attention to all the features that have been released throughout. So we will evaluate and we'll see if anything can be enhanced, if any new feature can be implemented, which would provide better capabilities. And if we go to the next sheet, now this is the crux of this scoring template. Now, this document talks about all the areas that gets into the next level. In entity model, we have about 10 or 12 parameters, and similarly in each of these level 2 parameters, we'll have multiple level 2 parameters. And if we look at the overall sheet, we have roughly about 180 to 200 parameters, and that's what we will be evaluating throughout. So again, what we do is we will score based on the guidelines that we have. We will then calculate the summary. It's a weighted summary based on the priority that client has specified. We calculate the weighted summary at each level 1 parameter, and then this, if you look at here, so this is what we have got from the previous sheet. So this is the weighted summary of the level 2 or level 1 assessment parameter, and these are further aggregated into the evaluation area. So we have the scoring at every level. We have scoring at the evaluation criteria level, we have scoring at the level 1, and we also have the scoring at the level 2 assessment parameters. And once this assessment is complete, we will then have a summary or a representation of all the level 1 or the evaluation parameter scores. And this is what can be shared with the leadership team, as a summary of this particular health check. And then while we assess the current state, we will also specify what the best practice score is. In some cases, the best practice, in most of the cases, the best practice is 5. And you don't have to be at best practice every time. I mean, you can be at a desired score. Like, best practice is the target, the end goal. But again, you don't have to reach the end goal. If we'll also specify what is the desired score that you could get into within the next 3 or 6 months. So that is what we specify in this in this scoring chart. We say where you stand today, what is the best practice, and what is your desired state. And once this scoring is complete, there'll be a slide or a summary with this score. And along with this summary, we'll also tell you what needs to be done in order for you to reach that desired state. That's what we'll be seeing in the next few slides that Stanley will be sharing.
Rakesh, quickly, what does entity mean here? Like 1, 2, etc. What does that mean?
Entity is the domains that we have configured. It could be, the individual, the organization, and if we are talking about life sciences, it'll be HCP, HCO, address, etc.
Thank you.
All right. So that's pretty much what I wanted to walk through on this scoring. I'm happy to take any questions, and I'll stop my sharing and I'll hand it over to Stanley.
So quickly, this is a paid engagement. So the question here is this sheet shareable to everyone? If it's not, then is there something that we can send like this presentation to show what this is?
Absolutely can send the presentation. You nailed it, Chris. So the sheet is, and I just posted in there, sheet is proprietary, so we're not sending what Rakesh just showed. But I can share a version of this presentation that has essentially all these slides.
Beautiful. Just send that to me and I'll make sure everybody gets it.
Will do. All right. Did I miss any other questions, Chris? I'm looking right now.
No, that's it.
Right. And can you see my screen again?
We can.
Perfect. Okay, so that was this top left deliverable. I'm going to drill in to just a couple more so you get that flavor and feel for what exactly you would be receiving or what we're working through or may collaborate with internal partners on before we kick this to Mr. Brian. So this was one of the deliverables. This is going to give you that score and that visual summary on how you're doing against the maturity. With this example, you can see data integration. And you can see the scorings here where we're shooting for those 5s all the way around and how we're performing against them. And then we're going to summarize on the right there, what we observed, what we saw. And this is something we would cover in that readout discussion of what are we shooting for? And then where do we deviate from those objectives, whether it's using the console data loader or, are we working towards real-time integrations? And, depending on what we're talking about, whether it's initial data loads, delta data loads, and the like. For that recommendations deliverable, as I mentioned when we walked through it, we really want to identify some quick wins. So especially if you're trying to potentially get buy-in or work towards a bigger objective, what are some quick wins that may help towards that or may even be dependencies towards that larger objective? On the left side here, those are those short-term fast ones that can be done a bit quicker, a bit easier. And then on the far right, where those often more valuable, but definitely higher effort and longer viewed objectives. And then lastly, within those recommendations, if there are questions on, hey, okay, that's great, that's still pretty high level. What is this even, what does one of those recommendations mean? What goes into it? What do we need? Are there dependencies like I mentioned? On the top left here, so for every one of those recommendations, let's say there's 15 on there, let's say there's 20. We're going to make this slide that you see on your screen now for every one. So for this example, for the data model cleanup, you're going to, on the upper left, get activities. What goes into it? What is it? What are we getting out of that one? What are we Reltio recommending? On the upper right, what is the value? Why are we recommending this? What is the customer going to get out of it? How does this bring you towards optimization, best practice, towards that use case that you're shooting for? Bottom left, of course, what are those dependencies? So if it is that strategic one, are there 3 of these ahead of it that really need to be done or a given activity or something to that effect? And then lastly, on the bottom right, that duration. So what can you expect? How big is this? If this is something really you're keen on or certain executives are keen on, how long is it going to take? Who's going to do it? Who's involved? From a team composition standpoint, hinted at this a bit earlier. We will absolutely work if there's a partner in there. We will absolutely work with them. I know there's partners on this call. That's great. So we are here to help and collaborate. We're going to collaborate with the customer. That's critical. So customers on here, thank you. We want to work with you and understand, where are you now? How did you get there? Where are you trying to go? We want to look at documentation that you have. And same thing with the partner. How long have you been in there? What are you working on? What are your goals? What have you been doing for the customer? And then we want to help as one team, help everybody reach those use cases, reach those values. So we'll come in and insert together through this exercise. So then what goes into that when we join? How long is it? What does it look like? What do we need? This typically runs about 4 weeks. We do have a week 0 for that initiation, where we'll ask, please give us everything documentation wise that you have. What are your requirement docs if you have them, solution designs, data models, everything you have. We will go through those, so we come in as at full speed as possible, and that'll help us reach these observations that Rakesh outlined. Then through that, over about 2.5 to 3 weeks, we will schedule the meetings with the respective groups that can answer the questions. So what you saw from Rakesh, we every single row there, and he has a whole bunch. We need to get every one of those answered and more to fill these out and to give you that response. So that's going to occur in a number of meetings, and then us going through documentation. Then we'll take about a week, half a week there to produce those recommendations, the documentations, fill out these deliverables that you saw. And then in that final week, depending on timing, we'll produce that presentation. So we'll first walk through everything I just showed from a deliverable standpoint, go through each one, answer questions, and then provide all that in a package. Last couple slides here. It's just from an expectation setting standpoint. On the left, this is an assessment only. So let's say we did see a deviation that you as a customer, or just from a recommendation standpoint from a partner, saying, hey, this really needs to be fixed. Oh, wow. This is assessment only. And then afterwards, if that's something you want us to fix, great, happy to do so. That would be a separate activity, separate statement of work. We do, of course, recommend training. Reltio Learn is fantastic. Get in there. Highly recommend anyone involved with Reltio be up to speed on the latest and greatest. And then, as I mentioned, we work as a team. So we'll come in together, really try to understand who's all part of the Reltio program and execute in that way. And then last but not least, if you have interest in this, if you want to know more, as Chris asked for, I will get him a presentation he can share. And then if you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to your customer success manager. They'll get you looped into this, or reach out to myself directly. I think we're doing good on time, so I'm going to move to Brian, and then we should have plenty of time for Q&A after this, whether it's on what I just presented on the Reltio 360 assessment, or what Brian is about to present on Ask the Expert.
Sounds good. I've been trying to answer the questions in the chat if Stanley's gone along, but feel free to keep asking them.
Will do. I'll take over that baton.
All right. Well, all right. Next slide, please. All right. So professional services, our new Ask the Expert offering. So this is designed for customers who have implemented Reltio. You're farther along in the maturity scale, and you are not in what we consider a new implementation. In those situations, there will always come opportunity to continue to advance your deployment and continue to get additional value out of Reltio. And those may come in the form of new releases. We do 3 per year. It may come in the form of new requirements from the business. You may have requests for new data validation features. You may need to modify workflows. You may need some other form of functionality. And when you have those very specific tactical type requests, oftentimes customers are challenged. They'll put requests in through customer success managers or through our support customer engineering portal. But in reality, what they need is an implementation expert. How do I do this configuration to meet my very specific needs? And trying to get an SOW done from both Reltio as well as your own procurement is often time consuming. It's challenging. When these questions arise, more often than not, you have an immediate need. You need those things answered. So the Ask the Expert offering is designed for those very specific customers to provide that insurance policy that you can engage with Reltio Professional Services over the course of the year. So next slide, please. So this offering is designed to really be a 12-month engagement. It is a low hours, low cost to make sure that over the course of that, ideally a 12-month span, that when those questions do come up, you can reach out via an email and have access to a technical consultant who has that subject matter expertise to help answer that tactical question. And we do so, again, via email, where then a technical consultant is assigned to you, and they will work with you to get to a conclusion of that very specific question. By having this, the value is now over the course of the year, you don't have to do a new contract. You can actually do this for multiple years up to the end date of your current MSA with Reltio. And you always have that opportunity to engage with someone when you need it. From a service level expectation, within roughly 24 business hours being a 24-hour clock, not including weekends, you send that email in, you'll get a response and as well as an invite to a meeting with that technical consultant who will then engage, dig deeper into your problem. They may need to do additional follow-up behind the scenes, but help get you to an answer so that you can then continue on with your implementation to achieve the value outcome that you're looking for. We're introducing two packages for this. First one is up to 40 hours per year, and the second one, 80 hours per year. Next slide, please. So the fine print, I started to allude to some of that in the previous, but this is not a replacement for any of our implementation offerings. When implementing a new domain, a new larger scope of work, with these types of packages, they are not a replacement. The offering is designed for that very tactical configuration help that you need. And as you think about, especially with new releases or implementing a new connector, you may need someone to help with that, whether it's new functionality we have coming out or existing functionality such as Snowflake connector, where you may need help to achieve being able to transmit that data. The SMEs are assigned based upon skill set, and they are not dedicated to a customer. So you're not getting a named resource. We have offerings if you need named resources, especially for implementations. We want to make sure that the appropriate offering is aligned to the customer for their appropriate need. And in this case, again, just reinforcing that this is a very tactical type of offer. Answer your question. It will consume some hours from that bucket, depending upon your offering, and let you continue to proceed. And then maybe you don't engage again for another month or longer, and then all of a sudden a new need arrives. You've still got that bucket available. Once the topic's been completed, we will ask customers for any new questions to resubmit a new request into the queue, and for that question, a new SME would be assigned. So again, it's not a named resource. This is a very tactical type of approach to help customers overcome that specific challenge, and then they'll move on. The duration is based upon 12 months. It can be less than that. And as those hours are consumed from that bucket, again, we have those ceilings, 40 and 80 hours. You may consume those all before the end of the 12-month period, in which case we'll work with you to renew that to make sure you continue to have that access to be able to get help when you need it. And last but not least, the same as I alluded to before, the length of this offering can only be up to the expiration date of your master services agreement. Next slide, please. cost and next steps. So from a cost perspective, this is a fixed fee approach. The standard bucket is $11,500 US, and the advanced offering for 80 hours has a discount applied for the volume, and that is $21,850. If you do have any questions for this or want to learn more, you can reach out to your customer success manager or reach out via community or directly to my email, and more than happy to go further in terms of the terms and conditions and then next steps on how we can get this vehicle set up so that you can start engaging. All right, at this point, we've got some time left and we can open up to additional questions, whether you want to do it through chat or you want to raise your hand here.
Well, I think, if somebody wants to take themselves off mute, we could certainly take questions from there if there are any additional questions.
Yeah, I think there's one question from Siddhartha on how this scoring helps. So basically the as a state that's already implemented, right? I mean, could have some bottlenecks, or probably could have used some configuration which is outdated, or maybe there could be a new feature that could add value to whatever has been implemented. And one other thing is, when we do this assessment, we'll be talking to everybody who is involved in Reltio, be it the architects, be it the data stewards, the business teams, the end users. We go over all the experiences, and then we figure out where you stand today and where you need to go so that you can derive the complete value out of the Reltio implementation. I mean, you might be missing on a few critical features that has not been implemented. So yeah, so this scoring tells you where you are today, what are the bottlenecks, what are the configurations that are not at par with the best practices, and will also give some recommendations on how you can get the best out of it.
Great.
Yeah, Rakesh, thank you for the deep insight. But as per my understanding, the requirement will be based on what is our availability or what we need, correct? So how using this scoring thing, you will able to consider or for timing, say, I'm just putting one example hypothetically. So address name cleanser or a name cleanser we are going to use, or we should use technically. And in current project, we are not using that. So how you are going to identify we should implement this thing by
No, so
looking at these.
right. So when we do the assessment, we'll go over all the configurations. So we will understand what has been implemented and what has not been implemented, and we'll also look at how good your data looks like. Like, are you? So one of the important things for the matching is to have the names to be consistent, right? And that's why we use the name cleanser. Now, if your matching is not working as expected and you see a lot of under matching, and if that is because of the name cleanser, or not using the name cleanser, then we will put on that recommendation. So we will not just look at the configurations, we will look at the data that is in there, and we'll also speak to everybody who is involved. So if they tell us something that it's not working, then we have that point. So we'll also ask you to give your pain point. So and again, it is quite possible that you will probably list out only one or two pain points, and in fact, this happened in one of the recent health check implementations. Like, we were talking to the business and IT teams, and they just gave us like 4 or 5 pain points, and then we did a deep dive on the data. We got the data into the analytical layer. We ran few queries to understand if there are if there are any undermatches or overmatches. Then we also looked at the data quality component. I mean, we looked at the patterns. We try to understand if the data cleansing issues need to be addressed. So all this gets into that 4-week engagement, and then recommendations come out of it. So
Clear.
that's our
Thank you,
answer
Rakesh.
to that. Yeah.
Thank you, Rakesh. Thank you.
All right.
Nice. Thanks,
All
Siddhartha.
right. Any other questions? Give it 5 seconds. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the Professional Services show. That was really good, and to hear about some of our offerings. Please make sure you give us a review or whatever at the end. You'll get a thing at the end from Zoom. But until next week, next Friday, until our next show, thank you everyone for coming. Really do appreciate it. Hope to see you on that show, but feel free to go to community.reltio.com, log in, post your questions about this show or any other things about Reltio. And then, yeah, that's about it. So thank you everyone for coming. Take care. All right. Goodbye, everyone.